And hello, movie lovers. And today I have a very special guest with me. As a matter of fact, he is actually the director and writer for his new movie called Coyote, and that is none other than Dustin Curtis Murphy. It's a privilege to have him on the show to be able to talk about his film. So, with further ado, let's go on ahead. Let's do this. And hey, Dustin, how are you?
Hi, John. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome, man. Anytime. I'm glad to actually have you on here to talk about your film. And just give a brief about who you are and how long you've been doing this kind of work and everything, too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I am a filmmaker by every sense of the word. I've been making films since I was a kid. I did start out as a child actor living in Southern California. And from there, I got swept up making movies in the backyard with friends using the parents' video camera. And instead of leaving that in my childhood, I continued to try to turn playing into a living.
That's awesome, though, man. That's really cool. What shows have you played in and everything as a child actor? I'm just
So
wondering.
yeah, so it's mostly on the stage. So
Okay.
kind of my biggest thing that I did is I did a regional theater version of Tom Sawyer when I was a kid. That won me an Inland Empire Theater League award. But then, yeah, lots of other regional theater around the Southern California area.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So I just want to say this. I saw the trailer for your film, and I definitely like the vibe that it's going for. I know that it's about a forbidden love of dystopian in a dystopian future with teleportation technology, which I find very interesting that you put like a little bit of a sci-fi twist to something like that. That I really find interesting how you played around with that.
Thanks. Yeah, that was always kind of the idea is how would this newly developed teleportation technology logistically affect things if it were to be real and unleashed upon the world? And I think as we see with a lot of different types of technology, a lot of the inventors of that technology oversell the benefits and sometimes are unaware of or undersell the Pandora's box that they can open of various problems. And obviously, if people can teleport to anywhere they want in the world, you have to think about how could people be taken advantage of that way? Could they be teleported to places that they didn't want to be teleported? Could terrorists, teleport into government buildings? How would human traffickers use that? And so that's the story that we tell. It's about two queer refugees who are trying to escape genocide in their home country. And they trust the wrong back alley teleporter. And in the process, they get separated and human trafficked and have to find a way to reunite and escape their captors.
I definitely like the idea that you have two queer actors in this film. To be honest with you, because of the fact that, in a sense, it's about them being kind of isolated away from each other after this, which is also kind of symbolizes how civilization is also trying to basically isolate them in general. So basically, you have two different narratives going on at the same time, in a sense, if that makes sense. But
Yeah,
that's yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because I mean, it's the way I look at the film is not very metaphorically. It's definitely very
Mhm.
literally because you need to realize that there are 70 countries in the world where it's still illegal to be queer, some of which even carry the death penalty with that. So it's not really that dystopian fantasy sci-fi future that would be real. We unfortunately live in that world today. So, kind of the only fantasy element of the film is indeed the teleportation. But I'm
Right.
kind of hoping that, putting a story like that into a genre film that you wouldn't quite be expecting it could actually get some awareness for the issue beyond what, you might expect it to be in like a social justice drama or something like that.
Exactly. And not only that, but I also like the fact that, you have the teleportation device and therefore, the governments could actually control what people do and everything too. So you have that played in there. And also, like you said, well, what if I didn't want to be teleported into this place and then I winded up getting over here and I'm isolated from my friends, my family, and everything else on top of it, and the anxieties and the struggle that you have to go through to get to the person that you want to be with.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really like is the drama between that and getting to where you're trying to get out of the sex trafficking plot and try to get back into the life that you once had. And then I bet that there's a lot of PTSD to go along with that, with the world that the other person's going through as well within
Sure.
this. So that's something I really have to say that was very interesting.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely what we're going for. And yeah, if anybody watches the film, there definitely is a lot of commentary on that specifically. With um, uh, the lingering traumas that can occur when you are a victim of systemic abuse. So yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And also, too, the special effects are awesome. The visuals, to me, sucked me right into this film, too. That's another thing I have to say. I like your care. I like your storytelling. I like the flow that you're telling within the story itself. To where it's like you're, even though it's a trailer that I'm looking at, and I wasn't able to watch the full thing, within those details itself made me be sold on that alone. To be honest.
Well, good, thank you. That's the point of a good trailer, is to hopefully get people interested in
Right.
watching more, instead of going, oh, no, not for me.
Right. But yeah, I like how you play the narrative of it. I really care about the relationship between Erica, Trina, and Anya, and I want to see. I can't wait to actually dive into this film even deeper. To be honest, and I just was wondering, where did you came up with the concept of this? Was it because of the whole AI thing that's been going on and stuff like that too? How long did it take for you to write it, or was this way before the AI stuff started taking over?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously AI has been in the conversation for a while, but it does seem to be quite trendy right now. Specifically, I was thinking more of the refugee crisis and kind of the conversation happening a lot on the political stage that was vilifying immigrants, and how, a lot of refugees in particular aren't people who want to be leaving their homes. They're not people who are, trying to invade countries and take over. They're people who genuinely want to stay where they are, and they have to leave their home country because of the situations within that country. So I came up with the concept probably around 2019, 2020. I wrote it as a short film in 2020. It was just a 10-page script, but some of the main characters were there, the main structure was there. And I'd done a lot of shorts that had done the festival circuit, and I decided it was time to, instead of putting it into production, it was time to put my nose to the grind and actually produce a feature film. And yeah, so then kind of went through a couple years of development sitting around in my brain, and then when the time came to put it down, pen to paper, that process was writing about 5 drafts in 6 weeks, where it was pretty much my main focus, to
Wow.
do iterations throughout that time. But it was sitting in my head, stewing, I would say, probably easily for 2 years prior to that.
Oh, that's amazing, man. Like, I could definitely tell your care and your love for this project. And a thing that I find really amazing is the fact that, yeah, you've been writing this since 2019 and 2020. At least with 2020, you're pretty much isolated your own self, so therefore you're able to flesh out certain things though too, because of the whole pandemic and the way that we're all locked down. So you'd probably be able to be a lot more dialed in, considering the fact that we have nowhere else to go, right?
Sure, and I mean, I would imagine that during lockdown, everybody wished they could teleport, right? You could
Right,
all of a
exactly.
sudden, like, okay, I'll lock down, but let me, teleport to my, because I'm an American living in London, so it's like, oh yeah, I could teleport, back home to the States for now, instead of being stuck in my London apartment with nothing to do.
Right. So my other thing was this though. I said, so you grew up in the States, you said, in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, in around Southern California. I lived in
Right.
Los Angeles a bit in my 20s, but I was kind of born and raised more Inland Empire, so about 2 hours east of LA, but I was, in LA quite a bit.
Okay. So what made you do the switch from living in Los Angeles to being in the UK now? And wh- my thing was this though too, was like, what's the environment like whenever you're a filmmaker in the UK compared to where it is in Los Angeles?
Yeah, so I mean, I decided to move over to the UK specifically for my partner who's British. Um, And it was, yeah, kind of a conversation of should they come over to the States, or, should I come over to the UK? And I'd always visited London, and I had a little bit of romance around it, and I've never lived abroad, so I thought it'd be kind of good to try. I also did a stint in Denver for a little bit. And I always noticed that anytime I was outside of LA, I would actually get more career opportunities, because in LA, literally everybody is trying to be involved in the entertainment industry in one way or another. I mean, you go to the bar, you get an Uber home. The Uber driver asks you, "Oh, what do you do?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm a director." "Oh, here's my screenplay." They'll pass it back. Um, London is a great city for the arts, but not everybody in the city is trying to be in the arts. So it's a little bit of a more accessible community, to where I feel you have a little bit of a better shot to get in the room with potential collaborators and decision makers, to where LA very much feels that if you go there without any connections, hoping to make it, you'll kind of be spinning your wheels quite a bit. If you build up your portfolio while you're outside of LA, and then return to LA, or enter into LA for the first time with a portfolio, I think it's a much stronger position to be in. And that's been my experience.
That's pretty neat, though. You go from living in Los Angeles to the UK to be with someone that you love, and then you wind up getting this huge portfolio done to try and get something out there. And I like how the UK. I love people in the UK. I'm just going to point this out. I think the people in the UK are the most down to earth people and that I've ever met and talked to, because that's where a large amount of my fan base is actually from, is the UK. And I just love how dialed in they are to the arts, and how laid back and chill they are to the fact that they're not trying to be something that they're not, and they are who they are. And I like the fact that, you can actually go into an Uber and not have to, like, here's my script. Okay, thanks. All I wanted was a ride, but okay. So at least you don't have to deal with other people trying to fit into what Los Angeles or anything is. You're able to be more yourself and be more dialed in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I would say, I did grow up in small town, even though I was in Southern California. And when I moved from that small town to LA, I thought I would be, maybe a bit more in tune with the creative community there. And I didn't really necessarily find that to be the case. I think outwardly, Americans seem like they're very, very friendly, but sometimes they don't necessarily, reciprocate the way you'd like them to in relationships. And over in the UK, my experience has been kind of the opposite. Sometimes there's a little bit of a harder shell. They're tired of the weather. Maybe they seem a little bit grumpy. But at the end of the day, a lot of people over here are there for you when they need them to be, which is quite lovely. So I think it's a little bit of America was built on rugged individualism, and people in the UK decided to sit here and solve their problems over time rather than escape them.
Exactly, because that's all we're into is just escapism when it comes down to the states and everything. And the UK is like, you know what? I'm just gonna go on ahead and do my thing my way. You do things your way, kind of thing. And that's how we're gonna do things. And I definitely like the way the UK is actually, they basically just sit back and look at the decision making, look at everything, and just analyze it, and then they go about their business. And that's what I like about how they handle stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's definitely evolved since I've been over here, and I've gotten a little bit more of some perspective. And I'd say we're in the UK. We do happen to be in this place right now where some of the politicians who are, representing the area are not quite in line with my experience of the people that I've met over here, which is also a big motivating factor to why I decided to, write Coyote. Is, there is a lot of anti-immigrant and anti-refugee rhetoric coming from these leaders at the very top that doesn't necessarily represent what the people of the country actually feel and how welcoming they want to be. So that's a big part of the conversation that Coyote is trying to have, is to paint these pictures of refugees. So the next time you interact with a refugee or hear a story about a refugee, you'll have this reference of this character that you loved in this film, to, hopefully make society a little bit more empathetic.
Right. And that's something that I want to say this though too. You know, it makes people more open-minded to the fact that this is still going on. Sex trafficking is going on in the world today, and you're making it well known within this thing too, because it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing that anyone has to go through and endure. But you're doing it through the lenses of these two women who are trying to find each other and try to find themselves again, and then getting lost into this dystopia future and trying to figure out a way to coincide with everything, you know? And I think that this is actually a beautiful way of doing some filmmaking whenever you come down to the plot, when you come down to the teleportation, and also how the government tries to control everything that you do. Especially, now, I just was wondering though, too, does this also have anything to do with maybe the government trying to control the teleportation stuff too? Or,
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, one massive factor of the film was kind of one of the pivotal moments was during the presidential election in the U.S. when
mm,
Trump said that these refugees coming from Mexico were rapists. And I juxtaposed that with the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. So somebody who Trump was rubbing elbows with, who we now know was a human trafficker and was a real life rapist. And I just thought it was so offensive, the gall of pointing the finger at the most vulnerable, and the hypocrisy of it when that's who you were actually rubbing elbows with at the top echelon of society. And was always there in the beginning of the project. That was there in the short film. That's certainly there in the feature, to where the villains of the story are the power elite at the top.
uh,
So not too much of a spoiler, but because this is in the write-up and synopsis of the film, the bad guys in the film who are frequenting the brothel that the girls are human trafficked to, they are politicians, and specifically they are anti-immigrant politicians. So those are the people on the face that are going to say, oh, we need to protect our borders and keep these immigrants out of our country, and refugees are dangerous people. Well, and then in the evening they're going to go get their sick jollies at a brothel full of refugees that are being taken advantage of.
right. And here's the thing. When Trump said that and everything, it definitely rubbed me the wrong way. I was like really pissed off at that time as well when he said that refugees are rapists and murderers. I'm like, wait, no, that they're coming here to want to have the same rights as us as we do, and you're trying to stop them from having those rights like we have.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, you're bumping elbows with people that are who you described as good people according to the eyes and lenses of how Trump looked at somebody, just as how the eyes and lenses of the government in the movie is. And in the daytime and everything, everybody puts on a front. Then at night, that's when you wind up putting on a new pair of skin, basically, if you think about it, where
Sure.
basically that's who you really are. And that's exactly what happened with these government people that are in this movie. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to contradict everything I just said and do whatever the fuck I want.
Pretty much.
And I'm going to go on ahead and party with the people that I find fascinating and that I find that are just as bad as the people I pointed out today, even though there's nothing wrong with the people that are the refugees, but I'm going to go on ahead and sleep with refugees that are coming in. It's very contradictory. It's very
Yeah, I mean, it's just the
conflicting.
hypocrisy, just the
Right.
absolute hypocrisy of it all. So, I think if you look at a lot of these, real life stories that films like mine are based upon, it's often it's the people who point the fingers, oftentimes that you need to look at, with some of their own behavior. Because a lot of times those people who are trying to tell you everything that's bad with those other people, you know are really the power elites at the top that are just trying to get away with something. It's the age old divide and conquer strategy. If we can keep the people that we're oppressing fighting amongst themselves, if we can convince the citizens of our country who are, struggling due to income inequality because, their jobs are being taken away. And if we can tell them their jobs are being taken away because of illegal immigrants entering the country, then we can keep these two disadvantaged groups fighting amongst each other and angry at each other so they don't turn on us. And
Exactly.
it's stories like that that I want to, tell and expose and hopefully, unite people, because I think, there's more in common that most people have, but unfortunately, a lot of times the people who sift to the top of the power structures are the people with psychopathic tendencies.
Right. And also too is we're more divided than we ever been in the world today. And that's
100%.
all they're trying to do. They're trying to divide us and try to fight against each other to the point of basically turning our backs on one another instead of uniting us because we're all on the same side. We just have opposite ideas of what we think should be. And just because we have opposite ideas doesn't mean either one of us are right or wrong. It's just that we have a different perspective on how we actually see things, and that's something that I think that the government fears. The government fears the fact that, oh, these people are getting along. So guess what we have to do? Let's go ahead. Let's get the not only get the political people at bay, but let's go on ahead and get the news media outlets and try to separate them even more to where they fight against each other because we don't want them to get along. We want this thing to be separated as much as possible, just as the people that's in your film that's trying to separate everybody else as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And I definitely like the fact that you actually have the government trying to control the teleportation devices. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the ones who controls where people go, where people can't go, and try to isolate them that way. And of course, if somebody stands out on the refugee scale or whatever, it's like, okay, well, guess what? We're not going to put them together. We're going to separate them, and they're going to go into the sex trafficking part. And then this other person will go somewhere else because she does not fit the standard of where we need to have them at. So that's how this is how I'm figuring it out. This is how I'm imagining it in my head because I'm just trying to go through the motions of something that I haven't seen yet. But I'm just using my imagination of what I've seen in the trailer.
Sure, and that's that is some of the ways that we go. I mean, one of the big things that we decided very early on in developing the concept was kind of making a bit of a commentary on income inequality. So attaching wealth and privilege to how far you can teleport. So if you want to jump from one side of the room to the other, that's something that's very cheap to do. But of course, you wouldn't want to do that because, you could just walk across the room. So it's really, for long distance travel that it becomes more beneficial. But the longer distance you're trying to go, the more expensive it is. So that's why, there's fake commercials within the piece that saying like, hey, enjoy skiing in the Swiss Alps and then teleport yourself to Hawaii to thaw out and have drinks on the beach. But when it comes to the refugees, some of them are being taken advantage of by paying their money to get teleported to safety. And then instead of getting teleported to safety, they are teleported just off the shore of their home country, left to die and drown in the ocean, because then the teleporter who, is doing a dirty job can keep their money without having to put in the extra cost to teleport them to safety. So we have a lot of those, dangers within it. And I think it being a new technology in the film is also very interesting because governments are quite inept, I think, when it comes to quickly adapting to new technologies. And I don't know if you saw when Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook was in front of the US government, and they were questioning him, and it was very clear that the members of the US government had never used Facebook and didn't really even understand what it was by the questions that they were asking. So
Right.
I did show that within the film as well, as this is new technology. The government has no idea how to deal with it yet, but they're making everybody afraid of it. They're doing what they can to support their government buildings and trying to make those teleport proof, and their military assets make those teleport proof. But there's dead zones across the entire country where, just areas of wilderness that are not protected that people can teleport into. And I think it makes it a very interesting time to place the story, because it's not, the technology hasn't been adapted yet and taken over by the government. Think of it as almost like Bitcoin, right? This is right when Bitcoin got invented, and it hadn't been regulated yet by the national banks.
Right.
So it's all up in the air. It's all a lot of chaos.
Right, because it's something new, it's unfamiliar. It's kind of like the days of Napster in a way, where everything was just
Sure.
chaotic to the point where it's like, oh, people are stealing music, and now all of a sudden now it's being controlled by iTunes and all that stuff, where people can't steal music anymore, even though they're going to try and find a way. But also, too, you can also revert back over to your film to the point where it's like, well, maybe you have hackers that can actually hack into this whole entire thing where you can actually let it backfire, and they can go wherever they want to go without having to pay for anything. And then, of course, I also like how you have this little dynamic, like you said, where basically what you do is you charge people according to how far they want to go. Therefore, it's regulated that way. But as far as the technology goes, as far as the unknown, as far as what other people can do to it, it's actually scary. So therefore, the government is going to try and finagle it around. Then,
Yeah.
of course, you have the Zach Zuckerberg technology person there that don't even, is like, I don't know how this runs. It just runs. It's kind of like the Matrix, where it's like, oh, there's a generator there. I don't know anything about how this runs, but I know it works. So apparently it's doing its job, right?
Sure.
So yeah, that's how I picture the person that's actually the tech person behind it, which is a Zuckerberg person. It's like, I don't have any fucking idea how this runs. All I know is the teleportation device is working, and that's all it needs to know.
and
So
it's making me money.
right, exactly. So it's making me billions. I'm winning. You guys are. This is not my problem. This is now a government problem. So guess what? You do your thing. I do my thing. We don't meet in between. And good luck to you. So that's what I'm getting. That's the vibe I'm getting from it. But
Yeah, for sure. So
yeah,
it's a sci-fi film. It's dystopia, and there's fantasy elements, but at the end of the day, it is quite a thinly veiled social allegory for a lot of societal problems that we see today. With central characters that you can fall in love with and root for as they go through this harrowing journey.
okay. I also have a question. Like, is this going to be like a wide theater release, or where's it going to be playing at, so that way people can go ahead and check this out?
Sure. So we're doing the festival circuit in the UK at the moment. We did have our world premiere in the US, and
Mhm.
if you are based in the US, you're going to be able to start renting or buying it digitally on June 20th. So just
Okay.
a couple days away, 3 days away. If you are international or in the UK, then you can go to our website, which is teleportyourself.com,
I love
and you
that.
can yeah, thanks. And you can look at the latest screening information. So the next one coming up is on June 25th at the Kingston International Film Festival. Would be the next cinema screening here in the UK.
Okay, well, guess what, man? I'm gonna go on ahead. I'm gonna rent this movie or buy it, and I'm gonna do a review on it.
Thank you.
And you're very welcome. And I'll go on ahead and I'll send you out the link whenever I review it, and then you can tell me what you think of the review, because I want to support this film. I'm a big, huge advocate for indie filmmakers and stuff like that. And I also like the fact that this was also a short film, and it turned into something bigger than what you actually thought. It's challenging to write a short film, but it's even more challenging to write something bigger than a short film. So I just want to say that I think it's very admirable.
Thank you. Yeah, well, my background is in short film, and it's interesting. Obviously, from a logistical standpoint, making features is a lot more difficult, but it was really nice to have the room to explore these characters and explore nuance and have good character arcs in a feature. Because when you do a short, it's you kind of always have to go to the lowest common denominator and the most simplest character tropes and stereotypes in order to get your story across as quickly as possible. So that's one thing where this story really benefits, is we take the time to go into the nuance of these very complex issues. So you're not just looking at a cartoon, black and white, oh, bad guy, good guy version of, complicated real world problems.
Right. Well, man, I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk about your film and me getting to know you. I do want to have you back over here again for another interview after I get done watching the film. So that way I
Sure.
can ask you some more geeked out questions, because I love sci-fi. I like also a little bit of a political thriller as well. So I definitely will want you to be back again whenever you have time. But thank you so much. This has been a great pleasure to have you.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate you having me on.
Not a problem, man. And guys, don't forget, 8 o'clock tonight, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be doing the Flash review. So go on ahead and mark your calendars for tonight. And I'll see you guys back here at later on tonight. And always until next time, guys. Bye-bye.